Good morning, students. Today we will study about the biomechanics of subtalar and transverse tarsal joint. In the previous video, we basically studied about the function of foot and the various motions of foot. We recognized all the bones, we recognized all the joints, and then we studied about the talocrural joint and its importance. The most important is the ankle joint complex. We understood why it is called as a complex and not as a joint. Fine. And then we have seen all the motions which are possible, the triplanar kind of a motion which is possible at the ankle joint. Now let us start with the subtalar joint. Subtalar joint, or the talocalic, the talus and it is a joint between the talus and the calcaneum. It is a joint between the talus and the calcaneum. If you can see for yourself, this is the talus bone and this is the calcaneum bone. It is a joint between the talus and the calcaneum. The talus and the calcaneum. That is why it is called as the talocrural joint. You can see now, if you can see the surface itself. Fine. You can see the surface itself. The talus is here. This much big talus, and this much big is the, you can see, is the surface. This is whole surface is the calcaneum. The calcaneum is large and the talus is small. It's a wedge-shaped structure. Now it is not united at one place. It is united at 3 points. That is why it is called as a composite joint. Composite joint, it has got 3 articular surfaces. One is the anterior surface from the anterior side, the anterior surface. One is the medial surface and one is the posterior surface. This is the posterior surface. Fine. So it has got 3 surfaces of articulation: the anterior, the medial and the posterior. Fine. The anterior and the middle surface, anterior and the medial surface, you understand the talus is superiorly and calcaneus bone is inferiorly placed. Now it is united at anterior and medial surface. The anterior surface, the convex tarsal is articulating with a concave calcaneal facet. The convex talus, please understand this word, the convex talus facet is articulating with the concave calcaneal facets. Fine. In the anterior and in the medial articular surfaces, both the convex talus facets are articulating with a concave calcaneal facet. But in the posterior articulation, you see that a concave calcaneal facet is articulating with the convex the convex articular facet of the calcaneum is articulating with the concave articular facet of the talus. It is opposite. It is opposite on the posterior articular surface, and it is just opposite to the anterior and the medial surface. This is very much important because herein the arthrokinematics will change. In between these 2 articular surfaces, the arthrokinematics will change. You can see when in the weight bearing and non-weight bearing position, we will see about it. Fine. So you understand this, the articulation, that is why it is bringing about, it's a composite joint and it has also got a triplanar kind of a movement. Now you can see from here, we can read through this, which I have already discussed. The posterior articulation is formed between a concave facet on the undersurface of the body of the talus and a convex facet on the body of the calcaneum. Fine. Whereas in the smaller anterior and the medial talocalcaneal articulation, it is formed between the 2 convex facets on the inferior body and the neck of the talus and 2 concave facets on the calcaneum. Then there is an important thing which I wanted to show you. Can you see from here? There is, if you can see from here, there is this. I wanted to show you this. Or in this view, can you see? It is. Can you see this surface? Can you see this surface? Can you see this surface? Fine. Now if we see this there is, you can see there is an articulation, posterior articulation in between the anterior medial and the posterior articulation. There is a small tunnel, and this tunnel is basically called as the sinus tarsi. or the sinus tarsal tunnel. Fine. And it is basically a funnel shaped structure which is articulating, or which is formed between the anteromedial, anterior and medial talocalcaneal articulation and the posterior talocalcaneal articulation. It is basically dividing it into two different cavities. Now you see that the anterior middle articulation of the talocalcaneal joint is basically having a different joint capsule, and this capsule is along with the talonavicular. It is along with the, if I can show you like this, it is this is the antro, fine, and this is the medial. Now this anteromedial talocalcaneal articulation is basically having a joint capsule along with the talus and the navicular bone. So you can see that they all form one joint capsule, and the posterior talocalcaneal articulation has got a different joint capsule. So the sinus or the tarsal tunnel, which is a funnel shaped structure, is basically dividing this area into two joint capsule, or into two cavities. One is anteromedial the tarsal and calcaneal articulation along with the transverse, that is talonavicular joint. Along with this, it forms one joint capsule, and the posterior talocalcaneal articulation forming another joint capsule. Fine. So this is basically an oblique surface is there, oblique area is there, and it is very much important when we study about, and it has got a small opening also, so it has very much importance is there regarding in sinus tarsi syndrome. Now if you can see, can you see this sinus tarsi? This is the sinus tarsi. If you can see it for yourself, the tarsi, it's a small funnel shaped structure which can be seen. Since it has been joined in a very different way, so you can see this articulation is very this cavity is very large, but actually the cavity is very small. So since it has been fused with screws and everything, so it appears to be very big over here, but it is actually very small. Now I wanted to show this also to you guys. This is this structure. This structure over here is called as this is the part on the lateral surface of the calcaneum bone, calcaneus, okay? And this is called as talli, substanticulum talli. Fine. And this becomes the insertion or origin of various ligaments which pass through it. So it also plays a very crucial role, because the last part is this basic funnel shaped structure. It plays a very crucial role. This substanticulum talli plays a very crucial role for the origin of and insertion of various ligaments. Fine. You can see this in this diagram also. This surface is called as the talli. This surface is called as the talli. Fine. Fine. Now if we can see for ourselves, okay, now if this is the surface and you find it, and there are ligaments. Now we are studying about the subtalar joint, talus on the top and distally. Superiorly there is a talus bone and inferiorly there is a calcaneal bone. So there are various ligaments which are responsible for the stability of this composite joint. You now understand why it is a composite joint, because it has got three articulations: anterior articulation, medial articulation and the posterior articulation, and it is divided into two cavities having different joint capsules. And you can see the anterior medial articulation is having a joint capsule which is sharing the joint capsule with the talonavicular joint, and the posterior articulation is separate. And you can see the surfaces are separate, so the arthro and osteokinematics are also different, which we will see in the when the motions, we will talk about the motions at the subtalar joint. But let us see what is the structures which are causing the stability which are bringing about the stability. These are being brought about by the joint capsule, the two different structures. The second is the ligaments. Now the ligaments are, you have to remember these ligaments, because the most important ligament over here, there are 4 ligaments, and only one ligament is the new ligament which we will learn today. Otherwise other ligaments we have already seen in the ankle joint. Now what is this ligament? One is said to be the calcaneofibular ligament. Calcaneofibular ligament. This calcaneofibular ligament was a part of, again, the ligament which we have seen earlier also. Fine. And this is calcaneofibular ligament was a part of lateral collateral ligament. That is the posterior part of the lateral collateral ligament was calcaneofibular ligament. Fine. So it is a part of that lateral collateral ligament, which is also giving us support over here. Then there is a lateral talocalcaneal ligament, which was a part talocalcaneal ligament. Fine. Then there is an interosseous talocalcaneal ligament and cervical ligament. Let me show you over here. This is the calcaneofibular ligament. This is the cervical ligament. Like this cervical ligament is basically connecting the neck of the talus to the neck of the calcaneum. Then there is an interosseous oblique phased. You can see this is obliquely. This was cervical was almost a vertical ligament, whereas this is you can see is an oblique ligament, and then a part of a deltoid ligament. You can see this deltoid ligament where the talus is getting attached to the calcaneum. Okay, so this it is supported on the medial side by the deltoid ligament. Fine. So now you understand why it is said to be the lateral fibers or these fibers. We have only learned 2 ligaments here: the interosseous ligament, which is talocalcaneal ligament, and the cervical ligament, which is connecting with the head and the head of the talus to the head of the calcaneum. So this is the important ligament, interosseous ligament. It is also been supported by the inferior extensor retinaculum. Fine. So this, because it's plus it is covering the tarsal canal, so it provides the stability to the subtalar joint also. So we have got the capsule, we have got the 4 ligaments, and we have got the inferior extensor retinaculum, which is the accessory structure which are supporting, along with the sinus tarsi, which is supporting the or giving stability to the subtalar joint. Now let us come to the subtalar motion. Now understand this, which I am reading. It is the posterior joint, the posterior talocalcaneal joint. When the talus moves on the posterior facet of the calcaneum, the articular surface of the talus slide in the same direction as the bone moves. That is, the concave surface moves on a stable convex surface. That is stable convex surface. You remember, herein we are talking about the talus, movement of the talus. The talus was concave and the calcaneum was convex. So herein, on the posterior joint surfaces, the osteokinematics is similar to that of the arthrokinematics. Why so? Because the talus is moving on a stable convex surface. The moving surface is concave. What happens in the middle and anterior joint is, so it is in the same direction to the movement at the posterior joint. Now what happens at the middle and anterior joint is, now the talus is gliding in the opposite direction to the motion. Now what happens is, the convex surface of the talus is moving on a concave stable joint. The convex surface is moving, therefore it is opposite direction. That is, arthrokinematics is opposite to that of the osteokinematics in anterior and middle talocalcaneal joint. Fine. So this is a very important thing which you will see later on. Fine. So this should be kept in mind. Why it is why this articulation was given the emphasis, because the mechanics changes. Fine. So because of this mechanics, the posterior side, the same kind of a movement is taking place, and in the anterior medial side, the opposite kind of a movement taking place. This is called as screw-like movement, twisting screw-like movement at the triplanar motion. So there is an oblique, single oblique axis along which a motion is taking place, which is a screw-like motion, which is called as supination and pronation. Fine, let us see this axis, this oblique axis. If you can see, this is becoming a 42 degree, it is inclined upwards from the, you can see here, sorry. So you can see over here, it is almost 42 degree inclined from, this is the transverse plane. Fine, it is 42 degree inclined from the transverse plane, fine, and it is also, you can see, 16 degree away, medially placed from the sagittal plane. It is 16 degree placed from the sagittal plane, and it was almost, you can see this axis was, the axis is 42 degree away from the, or upward, anteriorly tilted in the transverse plane. Now try to understand what does this mean, 42 degree movement in transverse plane. Now what is this transverse plane movement? You have to remember that first. That's why I've given you this axis. Now you remember what was happening over here is that in the in this plane, that is in the sagittal plane, there was flexion and extension movement which was there, fine, and in the vertical axis there was abduction and adduction movement was there, and there was in the AP axis or in the frontal plane there was inversion and eversion kind of a movement was happening. Now here we have told is that in the transverse plane, that is in this plane, can you see this plane? In the transverse plane, it is 42 degree. It is 42 degree inclined. Fine. So that means what there is an increase of these movement. Abduction to adduction movement is there. Fine. But in what is happening in the sagittal plane or in the coronal axis, it is inclined only 16 degree. That is, there is a very less amount of dorsi and plantar flexion, whereas there is a significant amount of abduction and adduction movement which is possible. Now let us go through this thing again. It is the subtalar axis is inclined upwards 42 degree from the transverse plane. That means in the transverse plane, it is inclined 42 degree, means a large amount of movement is taking place here. Fine. And it is medially 16 degree in the sagittal plane. Sagittal plane was responsible for dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. That is, restricted amount of movement will be there in the disc plane. Fine. So what is the movement? Now let us read through this. The subtalar axis lies halfway between the longitudinal and being vertical. Consequently, the pronation supination includes equal amount of eversion and abduction, whereas the subtalar axis is inclined slightly towards the coronal plane, that is 16 degree. Therefore, a very small amount of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion is possible. Imagine abduction, adduction, eversion, inversion is on a greater amount, whereas the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion was lesser amount. Now try to compare this from the ankle joint. In the ankle joint, the primary movement was dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, and a minimum amount of movement was abduction and adduction, or inversion or eversion. But here in the subtalar axis, what we are saying is the major movement is equal amount of movement is of eversion and abduction and adduction, whereas very minimum amount of dorsiflexion is taking place. So this is the major difference which is happening here. Fine. So now let us see these movement. Now when in a weight bearing position, non-weight bearing position, when in a non-weight bearing position means that the distal articular surface is free. The distal articular surface is free. Therefore, we take into reference point our calcaneum. We take into a reference point our calcaneum. Find the interior head of the calcaneum. We are taking this into a reference point because this is now free. It is in a non-weight bearing position. Now let us see supination and pronation. Now supination and pronation at subtalar joint means that to bring about that supination and pronation when it is free, you can see the motion of the distal segment, that is calcaneum, on the talus and the lower segment. So this movement, calcaneal motion which is taking place is, there is a, you can see, adduction and inversion. In supination, what is happening is, I cannot show you, it is fixed. Now the supination is this movement. Can you see? This is the supination movement. This is the supination movement. If this is the medial surface, and you can see that this is the kind of a supination movement which happens. In the supination movement, the calcaneum is basically, if I take this as a calcaneum, the calcaneum is moving with there is an inversion, adduction, and there is a plantar flexion. There is a plantar flexion, inversion, and there is a plantar flexion which is happening. There is an inversion which is happening, and there is an adduction which is happening. So that is what is the movement which is there. The first movement will be adduction, inversion along with the plantar flexion movement. Whereas pronation is when there is an abduction, eversion and dorsiflexion movement. Keeping into mind the motion at calcaneum, the motion which is taking place at calcaneum, that is the motion of when the non-weight bearing position the calcaneum is moving. The calcaneum can move in adduction and inversion is the primary movement, and plantar flexion is added to it in a very small amount in supination, whereas in pronation is brought about by is brought about by abduction, eversion and dorsiflexion. Abduction, eversion, dorsiflexion and adduction inversion is brought about by plantar flexion. This is in a non-weight bearing subtalar joint. Now to show you what all I have said is, let us see this. Now it is a non-weight bearing, this is a right leg. Fine, we are talking about right leg. Now right leg, you can see what is happening in the first case. It is for pronated foot, the medial end of the foot. Can you see the medial end of the foot is touching the floor? So you see first the calcaneum has gone into valgus position. The calcaneum has gone into valgus. Valgus means abducted. Valgus is a term used for abduction. There is an abduction of the calcaneum which has taken place, and it has also occurred is with this abduction there is an eversion movement which has taken place. There is an everted position. Can you see the angle medio? This is the medial angle. This medial angle has there is a medial angle, or this is not the medial angle, this is the medial angle, this is the lateral angle. The medial angle has increased. Let me show you again. This is the medial angle. So this is normal, it should be 180 degree. It is now more than 180 degree. So the foot has gone into, the calcaneum has gone into eversion. Fine, the foot has gone into, or the calcaneum has gone into eversion. Eversion, abduction, and it is brought about by dorsiflexion is taking place. What is happening over here is, now you can see the foot. It has already become as plantar flexed in supination. The medial or the lateral border is coming to the, you can see the lateral border is coming to the floor, and you can see the plantar surface, plantar area. So plantar area can only be seen when the foot is plantar flexed, and you can see herein there is a reduced, angle is 180 degree, less than 180 degree. Less than 180 degree, that is inversion has happened. Inversion is brought about by adduction and plantar flexion. Fine. So with this diagram, I think this should be clear. Since this is a fixed portion, I cannot show you properly. So this was a diagram basically meant for you guys to understand that this is the motion which is happening over here. Now this was in a condition when you can see when the foot is at the edge of the couch. You can see the foot is at the edge of the couch in a non-weight bearing position. Fine. The foot is at the edge of the couch and it is in a non-weight bearing position. Now let us take a condition in which there is a weight bearing position. In non-weight bearing position, we have reference point as calcaneum. So motion was taking place in calcaneum. That is, there was adduction movement or abduction movement followed by the other movements. Fine. Now what happens in weight bearing subtalar joint? Now in weight bearing, the calcaneum is in the ground, that is in weight bearing position, and what is happening is there is the talus, calcaneum is in the ground and the talus is free to move. Now there is a difference between the two. That means the calcaneal, ideally calcaneum can move only when in weight bearing position. The only motion which is possible, try to understand this. Now when the full weight is passing through it, the only movement which is possible at the calcaneum is the longitudinal movement, that is inversion and eversion movement. Fine. And the movement of plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, abduction, adduction is not possible because the weight is passing through it. Now this is because of the superimposed weight, this motion is not possible. Only the longitudinal motion is possible. Fine. The other motions at the calcaneum is not possible in the case of weight bearing of the subtalar joint. So how this movement takes place is, now it is calcaneum will either invert or evert, but there is a coupled movement or component motion, that is the talus will take into action. Since the talus is moving, the talus, we remember the motion of the talus along with dorsiflexion, there was plantar flexion and there was little bit of medial rotation and lateral rotation there. So this motion is taking place at the talus. in calcaneum only longitudinal axis motion is taking place, that is inversion and eversion. The other two axis motion, that is which is brought about at the sagittal plane as well as in the transverse plane, is brought about by the talus, the movable bone. Because the weight is passing through the calcaneum, now the talus will move. So the talus is bringing about two coupled motion, that is abduction, adduction, and dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. So herein, in weight bearing joint, the reference point will be the head of the talus. In a non-weight bearing position, the reference point was the calcaneum. Herein, the reference point will be our talus. Got it? I think this is clear. Now let us go through this. In a weight bearing subtalar motion, the direction component movement contributed by the talus is opposite of what the calcaneum would contribute, although the same relative motion occurs between the segments. Now remember this. Now what is happening in the weight bearing position is, remember the motion which is happening over here is at the anterior and medial articular surfaces, where the arthrokinematics was opposite to that of the osteokinematics. That means what is happening over here is, whatever motion is happening at the calcaneum, at the posterior articular facet or at the posterior articular surface, the opposite will happen at the interior surface. Okay, that means if the calcaneum is moving at one point, the motion at the talus will be just opposite. Let us go through this. What does this mean? Let us see. Now, let us first understand what we have already learned. What we have already learned is, we have already studied this in a non-weight bearing position. What was happening is, there was only calcaneum was free. Fine, the calcaneum was free. The reference point was calcaneum. The calcaneum was free, and that means the distal articular surface, non-weight bearing position, the distal articular surface is free to move. Now what was happening in supination? The pure movement was happening is the calcaneal inversion and adduction followed by a minimum amount of plantar flexion movement was occurring in supination. What was happening in pronation is calcaneal eversion, abduction and dorsiflexion movement was happening in non-weight bearing position. Now the second motion is the weight bearing position, where the reference point is talus, not calcaneum. Now we understand that even in weight bearing position, the calcaneum can move only in inversion or eversion. Only a longitudinal axis motion can take place over there. So you can see the same. By in supination position, the calcaneum has gone in the same position. That is calcanean. There is inversion. Supination brings about calcaneal inversion, but opposite happens at the level of talus. There is talus abduction, talar dorsiflexion which is happening. Opposite motion is happening at the talus, abduction, talus, dorsiflexion. Now you remember, the abduction is basically, the other word is medial and lateral rotation, which we have seen in the talocrural joint. So abduction is basically the lateral rotation, and this brings about lateral rotation of the tibia fibular joint. It brings about the tibial lateral rotation, tibia fibular lateral rotation. Now what happens in pronation is, the calcaneum goes into eversion. Still in weight bearing joint, the calcaneal goes into eversion, but talus moves in the opposite direction. The talus brings about adduction and plantar flexion, and tibiofibular medial rotation takes place. Tibial fibular medial rotation takes place. What does this mean? This is called as the coupled motion at subtalar joint. This is called coupled subtalar motions. Now coupled subtalar motions means, that is coupling of motion. When one motion is taking place at the calcaneum, at the same time at one joint axis, at another joint axis, at the same time there is another motion which is taking place, and this happens in supination and pronation. With these words, coupled motion, I have already described you in knee joint also. We have seen two coupled joint motions in the knee. With flexion there is rotational movement, and with flexion there is varus and valgus motion which is taking place. So similarly in subtalar motion also there is a coupled motion which is taking place, one at the calcaneum and another at the talus. Whenever there is in weight bearing position, the calcaneal goes into inversion, the talar goes into abduction and dorsiflexion, and there is lateral rotation of the tibiofibular joint. When in pronation, with calcaneal eversion, there is adduction, plantar flexion of the talus, and tibiofibular medial rotation takes place. This should be very much clear, because this becomes the basis of our other further motions which takes place in other joints, that is transverse tarsal joint and other joints. Fine. So this should be very much clear. What happens in weight bearing position, what happens in non-weight bearing. Normally supination, we say that normal supination is we take into consideration non-weight bearing position. That's why in supination is when the medial surface, or we can see when we are weight bearing on the lateral surface of the foot. So supination is, we say it is calcaneal. Inversion is taking place and there is plantar flexion because the plantar surface is visible, and we say adduction. But when it is in weight bearing position, this calcaneal inversion is followed out by the tarsal abduction, dorsiflexion and lateral rotation. You should remember in weight bearing and non-weight bearing. Fine. Now, to add to this point, you can say that whenever there is a supinated foot, we say it as supination is called as pes cavus foot. Fine. Pes cavus foot, because you can see there is an elevation of the medial longitudinal arch. Whenever the foot is supinated in weight bearing position, to take into weight bearing position and supination, you see that medial longitudinal arch goes into elevation, and this is called as cavus foot. In a weight bearing pronated foot, so subtalar pronation is taking place. There is lowering of the medial longitudinal arch, and we say it as a pes planus foot or a flat foot. Remember the word, this is bringing about a cavus foot and this is bringing about a planus foot. Fine. This condition causes a cavus foot and this causes a planus foot. Fine. Okay. Now what about this leg movement which I told you? Now I have already discussed about it. Let's go through this slide. The dorsiflexion, we understand that when the talus moves, the dorsiflexion of the talus is this bone. The dorsiflexion of the talus, head of the talus, requires the body moving posteriorly. The body slides posteriorly on the mortise. Okay? The talus movement is, or dorsiflexion is, there is a the body is moving posteriorly or gliding posteriorly. Plantar flexion movement is when the head of the talus is moving anteriorly on the mortise. We know this. Now when the head is of the talus abducts in a weight bearing subtalar supination, the body of the talus must rotate laterally in a transverse plane. That is, the talar abduction is causes a lateral rotation. Talus abduction is lateral rotation, causes a lateral rotation of the talus, whereas when the talus adducts in a weight bearing position, it brings about a medial rotation in the transverse plane. Fine. The lateral rotation, if the subtalar joint supinates in a weight bearing position, it is followed by a talar abduction, and this produces a lateral rotation of the leg, whereas in weight bearing subtalar pronation, it brings about talar adduction, which causes a medial rotation of the tibia and the fibula, so which we have already seen in the previous slides. Fine, I'm just going through it. Now you should know how to basically measure the calcaneal valgus and varus. Now there is a specific point how to we do it. We do it in a weight bearing position and a non-weight bearing position. Now in a we see it when the person is lying on the couch, just the foot is placed at the edge of the couch. You see there is a line that is posterior. We make into point a reference line from the posterior of the calcaneus and the posterior midline. This is posterior midline of the leg and the posterior part of the calcaneum. There is an angle which has been formed. This normal angle is 180 degree. Fine, and this two lines should be at 0 degree. Ideally, in a neutral position of calcaneum, this should be at 180 degree. That is at a neutral position. Fine. Now, what happens is in a normal is, if the movement takes place is in this again slide, we see that the inversion is very less. The inversion is 5 to 10 degrees, but the everted position, when the calcaneum move in eversion, the outward movement is round about 20 degree. The full range, if I can say, is 25 to 30 degree. The full range of calcaneal range of motion, if I can say, including inversion and eversion, is 100 and if you can say is 25 to 30 degree, where inversion is 5 to 10 degree and you can say 20 to 30 degree is the eversion. This is the motion which is there in calcaneal inversion and eversion. Now if you can see, this is the medial angle which we have already seen in the other slides. The point at which the midline of the posterior calcaneum and the posterior leg coincide, the medial increase in the angle is referred to as valgus, and decrease in the angle is said to be as calcanovarus. We have already seen this. Okay, this is calcanovalgus and this is less than 180 degrees calcanovarus. Fine. So this is all about the subtalar joint, the talus. This is all about the subtalar joint, that is the talus and the calcaneum. The talus on the superior side and the calcaneum on the inferior side. We have seen there it is a composite variety of a joint, composite joint. Why? Because it has got three articular surfaces, anterior, medial and posterior surfaces, and their astro and arthrokinematics are different. This which we have seen in weight bearing and non-weight bearing position. We have seen how the mechanics change. Fine. So in this joint we have seen all the ligaments which support. We have seen that sinus tarsi roll, how it divides this joint into two different cavities, and they have got different joint capsules in it. Then we have seen the ligaments which support. Basically one important ligament is the cervical ligament and interosseous ligament between the tarsal and the calcaneum, tarsal bone and the calcaneum, which is connecting the head and the body of the tarsal and the calcaneum body. Fine. There is also been supported by deltoid ligament and the ligaments that is fibulocalcaneal ligament. Fine. Now another important thing is the axis. It has got basically the axis is there is it brings about a triplanar kind of a motion which is also there in ankle joint, but in subtalar joint the motion is more about the motion is inversion or eversion. This motion is more prominent, or if I can say inversion, eversion, abduction, adduction motion takes place at a larger amount, and then very small amount of dorsiflexion and plantar flexion motion takes place. So this is the difference between ankle joint and the subtalar joint. Now we have seen the motion which takes place in a weight bearing position and a non-weight bearing position. In a weight bearing position, the non-weight bearing position, the calcaneal movement takes place, that is supination and pronation, because it's a triplanar motion takes place over here, because it's oblique axis. So we have seen that. So the motion which is taking place is triplanar motion. Supination is brought about by there is a there is adduction, inversion and plantar flexion movement, whereas pronation is brought about by there is a abduction, eversion and there is a dorsiflexion movement. But what happens when in a weight bearing position? In weight bearing position, the weight is passing through the calcaneum. So the calcaneum, only one motion is possible, which is through the longitudinal axis, that is inversion and eversion. This is the only movement which is possible, whereas the other motion takes place at the talus. What is that motion? That is adduction, abduction and dorsi and plantar flexion. Whenever the talus move, there is some kind of a movement at the tibiofibular joint also, because the talus is a part of that mortise. You understand, it is a wedge in the mortise. So as soon as the talus movement takes place, the mortise will also move. This we have seen in the ankle joint. So these all our motions are joined together. Now in the supinated position, you have already seen the supination is calcaneal inversion position. Inversion position is brought about by there is an abduction of the talus, and there is an there is a dorsiflexion which is taking place at the talus. So abduction brings about a lateral rotation movement at the tibia and the fibula. Fine. And what happens in pronation is, the pronation is eversion of the calcaneum, brings about and there is a adduction movement which is taking place at the talus, and there is a plantar flexion which is taking place. The adduction movement is the medial rotation movement and brings about medial rotation of the tibia and the fibula. Fine. So these are the motion. This is a coupled motion of the subtalar joint. And during weight bearing and non-weight bearing, you should be very much clear about how this movement takes place. Now the supination, you all understand, is bringing about a movement of pes cavus. Fine. The medial longitudinal arch is increased, and pronation is pes planus, when there is a drop in the medial longitudinal arch. I will wind up the lecture over here. We have completed the subtalar joint. Since I will be covering in the next video the transverse tarsal joint. Thank you guys.